Joining us now, Toby Mack from the Energy Equipment and Infrastructure Alliance. Toby, good to have you with us, man.
Thank you, John.
You know, energy right now, a big issue in Virginia. It's a big issue in the gubernatorial race between, some people not happy with the deal that was made with Dominion Power, some people against these pipelines. What is your main agenda item right now?
Well, we are, first of all, strongly in favor of the pipelines that are being proposed or are under construction getting completed quickly and on schedule because our grid and our consumers and our industries need that energy to compete and to lower costs to consumers. And pipelines are the primary way of delivering natural gas to both to generate electricity and to feed the factories and heat the homes in the areas that they serve.
You know, Tony, we have gone over these pipelines here in Virginia for so long, the Mountain Valley Pipeline, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. They were front and center in the Democratic gubernatorial primary we just had. Tom Perriello saying that he would do anything in his power if he was governor to stop them. Ralph Northam, who was a nominee, the lieutenant governor now, who is for the pipelines. Then he hedged on it, says, well, he's not really involved in that decision. McAuliffe, our governor, now in favor of the pipelines. And we know that's got to go through a process. We know it's going to bring thousands and thousands of good-paying jobs to Virginia. Give us an update. Where are we exactly now, and when do we break ground?
Well, we hope this fall. The Dominion Energy is moving this the project through the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission here in Washington, and they've gone through an extensive and very, very thorough and exhaustive process of evaluating environmental impacts, making sure that they were mitigated, and the path of the project moves through areas that will have least impact on the environment. So a lot of care is being taken to get this done, but in the end, the commission here in Washington has to issue an approval, and that's what keys off the construction project.
So, all the bureaucratic paperwork that we're going through, do you have a timeline that you think this might actually happen?
Well, Dominion hopes to get their approval late in the summer and begin construction as early as the fall.
Well, I tell you what, I can't wait until this happens. We've been going on with this for so long, and it is very frustrating, as you know, for many of us. But the interesting thing, Toby Mack, is a public survey was done, right? A poll was done on these pipelines. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, but Virginians, by a wide margin, over 57%, in favor of these pipelines. And that kind of goes off the radar screen because it's like one of these things where those that are opposed to it, that protest and jump up and down, they get all the media attention. But yet you look at surveys that come out, an overwhelming majority of Virginians are in favor of these pipelines. Why doesn't the media play that up?
Well, there's the possibility that there's some bias in the media, but I won't go into that. But I think that the fact is that and I don't want to call them the silent majority, but I think the majority of Virginians understand that this pipeline is going to bring a lot more reliable and lower cost energy to their homes and businesses. Mm-hmm. And they get that. So, they understand that the opposition that you refer to is some folks that are supercharged, and I think they're motivated by the desire to just not burn natural gas or fossil fuels of any kind. So that's where they're coming from, and I think that's what we're dealing with.
You're right. It doesn't matter what it is. They're just opposed to any fossil fuel at all. We're with Toby Mack. He's the president and CEO of the Energy Equipment and Infrastructure Alliance, building and serving in energy for secure America. So everybody knows the EEIA, Energy Equipment and Infrastructure Alliance, represents the shale energy supply chain. That represents more than 1 million workers employed in over 120,000 companies in 60 industries in the United States. I mean, these are just great paying jobs for people. I want to get to the pipeline jobs, Toby, and maybe you can get rid of another fake news item, false media thing that's out there. And Tom Perriello said this during the campaign, and I got into it with him on the air several times, about these pipeline jobs. He says, yeah, so you have a pipeline. These are temporary jobs. They go away. They don't mean anything. That is such a falsehood because, first of all, these jobs are for a long period of time as you build a pipeline. But the other thing is, if you're in the construction business of putting these things together, the nature of the business is you go to job to job. So to say that they're just temporary jobs, I mean, isn't that the epitome of fake news, Toby?
Yeah, I would agree. The jobs in any construction job is a temporary job if you think of the fact that a construction job, has a start and a finish. And so construction workers build their careers, make their incomes, support their families on a succession of these, quote, temporary jobs, unquote. And that's how construction workers make their living. And so trying to, devalue or denigrate these jobs because they're temporary totally misses the point. That point is made by people who just don't understand how workers make their living. And this is a very important point.
Toby, I want to get into the actual construction of the pipeline and how your organization is involved in it, the Energy Equipment and Infrastructure Alliance. So it looks, if we get things going, everything is done on schedule, we actually might break ground for the Atlantic Coast Pipeline in the fall. How is your company or your organization affiliated, and where do we get the materials? How does this all work?
Well, we represent, as you said, the supply chain, and this is all of the components and the equipment and the materials and the supplies that go into construction of the pipeline. So think of, for example, construction equipment, which is a good example. There are many companies throughout the state of Virginia that supply construction equipment to construction jobs, and particularly to pipeline jobs. And in those companies, you have many, many, many hundreds, in some cases thousands of workers who prepare the equipment, repair the equipment, do all the administrative and the deliveries and the support work necessary to get that equipment to the job site. And so those are all jobs that are created in the supply chain. And then you have to go back up the chain and think of the people who manufactured that piece of equipment or who manufactured components to go into it, like the rubber hoses and the hydraulics and the steel. So that's what we mean by the supply chain. So all those jobs are very, very real, and they're driven by the fact that you need that piece of equipment on that job to move the dirt or to dig the trench or to move the pipe in completion of that work.
All right, we're with the Energy Equipment and Infrastructure Alliance President CEO Toby Mack, and just so that, again, everyone knows, this association represents the company supplying heavy equipment and related products and services to the construction, energy, mining, and forestry industries in Northern Virginia. So obviously you build a pipeline like the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. You bring jobs to Virginia, not only in building the pipeline, but then in building the equipment to bring it there, to get it there. There's a whole chain reaction of jobs created. And then here's the thing. After you have the pipeline, then you get the real jobs, the bigger ones, because then you can attract manufacturers to come in along with the pipeliners so they can tap right in to that energy. And then you have permanent, long-lasting jobs, Toby, that go with that. That's why 57% of Virginians favor the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. By the way, again, that poll nowhere in the media except on the John Fredericks radio network. Like, it gets no play, like it doesn't exist. People want these pipelines in Virginia. They want these jobs. Hey, I just got a text here from Chris Saxman who says, by the way, Governor of Virginia is a temporary job. Good point, Chris Saxman. Toby, average people, that 57% that says, I want pipelines, I want jobs, I want to grow the Virginian economy, what can they do in order to get the ball moving? How can they get involved? How can average people get involved to help make this a reality?
Well, for one thing, if they have an opportunity to speak out to their political leaders, either local or their state leaders or even their federal legislators, just tell them they support this project. The more supporters that are out there, the more support this thing has, the quicker I think it's going to move through, and the more that the opposition is going to be overwhelmed by the positive voices, as you point out, are a majority of the Virginia public. And I think one of the points that they need to make that not too many people or enough people have emphasized is that natural gas for generating electricity is the cheapest, cleanest form of providing electricity to homes and businesses. And so, this pipeline is going to bring natural gas to these new power plants that are being built to burn natural gas, and just the building of these plants creates jobs. So there's just a whole chain of beneficiaries, including the public and the jobs and the environment, because natural gas burns twice as clean as other fuels for generating electricity.
It makes so much sense. I also want to commend Toby Mack for, I know you were one of the key people instrumental in lifting the crude oil exports ban we had. Remember, we had that because of the oil crisis back in the 70s and just stayed there. And lifting that ban has created many U.S. energy jobs in the supply chain, Toby, and I know you were instrumental in that. And, it just goes back, if we've only got a minute, but you go back to the export oil ban. I mean, that was put in place when Jimmy Carter was president in the 70s. And nobody ever did anything with it. And it was there for obviously a reason. We didn't want to sell oil when we had our own oil crisis. Now we don't have that. Was that the craziest thing ever or what?
Yeah, it was bad policy when it was introduced, and it got worse and worse. And then it became absurd when we started producing more and more crude oil from shale, which we've done since 2010. And so, yes, it was an obsolete policy, and it was very, very detrimental to consumers of the products made from crude oil, like gasoline and diesel and jet fuel.
All right, well, we got rid of that with your help. Good job there, Toby Mack. Thanks for being with us, the President and CEO of Energy Equipment and Infrastructure Alliance. More information, EEIA. That's a lot of vowels, Toby. EEIA.org, EEIA.org. Toby Mack, President and CEO, Energy Equipment and Infrastructure Alliance. Thanks for being with us, man.